Have you ever witnessed a moment so satisfying, so completely righteous, that it feels like the universe finally pressed the balance things out button? Yeah, this was one of those moments. Because when Madison Carter, the platinum card princess of Capitol Hill royalty, strolled into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, the audacity didn't just enter the room. It strutted in head high, chin up, trailing clouds of entitlement like designer perfume. This wasn't just a court appearance. It was a walking billboard for everything that makes people roll their eyes at the phrase, "Some people think they're above the law." And for a brief, breathless moment, it looked like she was going to get away with it. The charges were no joke: reckless driving, hit and run, obstruction of justice. Not some casual oopsie at a stop sign. This was an actual public safety hazard in 4-inch heels and a bad attitude. And yet, the way she walked in, the way she acted in front of Judge Caprio, you'd think she was there complaining about the valet. Madison Carter sat down, barely looking up from her phone, tossed her hair like it was shedding accountability, and said, "Let's get this over with. I have a gala tonight." Oh, she thought this was going to be easy. But see, Judge Caprio isn't just any judge. He's not here for theatrics or intimidation. He's that rare combination of old-school wisdom and no-nonsense moral clarity. He listens, he reflects, and when the moment calls for it, he delivers a kind of judgment that doesn't just teach a lesson, it makes a point. From the jump, Caprio gave Madison every opportunity to own her actions, asked her to explain herself, gave her that open door to show even an ounce of responsibility. But what did she do? Double down. "I didn't hit anyone that hard. They should have moved faster. The police were clearly just trying to get attention. Do you know who my father is?" And there it was, the magic phrase, the one rich kids all seem to have tattooed, somewhere invisible. The "my dad can fix this" clause. Like that's supposed to scare someone who spent decades upholding justice regardless of status. The courtroom? Silent. Tense. You could practically hear the collective side-eye. And Caprio, cool as ever, says, "I know who you are." That's a concern. Then he plays the footage. Dash cam, body cam, even audio from a bystander's phone. Madison speeding down a narrow street, ignoring a stop sign, swerving, scraping someone's car, and then driving off like she was late for bottomless brunch. The cops caught up with her 20 minutes later at a luxury spa, where she refused to roll down her window and told them to call their supervisor or her father's office. You can't make this stuff up. What followed wasn't a courtroom yelling match. It wasn't dramatic gavel slamming. It was something worse for Madison: calm accountability. Caprio laid out the charges, asked if she understood, and when she scoffed, he calmly said, "You're not here because of who your father is. You're here because of what you did." Boom. And then came the sentence. And let me tell you, it was poetry. Not just a fine. A personal fine. No daddy's checkbook. No mysterious family office covering the bill. Her money. Her own account. Then, suspension of her driver's license. Effective immediately. No driving privileges. Not even a Whole Foods. And the cherry on top? 100 hours of community service. With immigrant delivery drivers. Yes, that's right. Miss, these streets are for luxury vehicles, was now required to walk those streets on foot in the rain, delivering lunch to walk-up apartments. No special treatment. No filmed apology tour. Just pure, unfiltered consequence. At first, she tried to fight it, filed an appeal, tried to get it sealed, threatened the media. But Caprio wasn't budging, and neither was public opinion. And when the story went viral, the internet did its thing. Clips of her courtroom quotes became memes. TikToks. Even a remixed track dropped called "Do You Know Who My Father Is Feet Karma." It hit 1 million views in a weekend. But here's where things flipped. Madison served the sentence. And not performatively. Not for show. She actually showed up, dragging delivery carts in the snow, apologizing to drivers, listening, learning. At first, she was a disaster, complained about the hours, asked why she couldn't just donate instead. But week by week, the sharp edges softened. She started understanding what those workers dealt with, what it meant to survive on tips, to be invisible, to have no one care unless you were in the way. And slowly, so slowly, Madison Carter became someone else. She didn't just serve out the hours. She added more, started organizing with driver unions, helped translate City Hall documents, launched a fundraiser for electric bikes and weather gear. The girl who once threatened cops with Senator Daddy energy was now hauling food in the rain, advocating for fair pay, and testifying at local government meetings quietly, with zero cameras. It wasn't a rebrand. It was a rebuild. Judge Caprio, when asked about it later, said, "Sometimes justice isn't about punishment. It's about creating the moment where change becomes possible." Madison Carter took that moment. And look, maybe you're still skeptical. That's fair. In a world of PR stunts and fake apologies, it's hard to tell the difference between image rehab and real growth. But here's the thing. Real growth isn't loud. It doesn't come with a confetti cannon and a brand partnership. Real growth looks like quietly walking the same streets you once sped through, like cleaning up the mess you created without demanding applause, like learning the names of the people you once ignored. Madison Carter did that. She proved that privilege doesn't have to be a shield. It can be a responsibility, if you let it humble you. And her father? Senator Carter eventually issued a statement that actually felt human. "My daughter's actions were unacceptable. Her accountability is hers alone. But I am proud of who she is becoming. Not because of her last name, but because she's choosing to earn the kind of respect money can't buy." Which brings us here. To you, what do you think? Was justice served? Did the punishment fit the crime? Is redemption possible for someone who starts off so insufferably privileged? We want to hear it. The good, the bad, the messy. Light up the comments. Tell us, if you were the judge, how would you have handled it? What would have been your sentence? And if this kind of dramatic, soul-stirring, privilege-crumbling courtroom chaos is your vibe, you know what to do. Hit that like, smash subscribe, and make sure you're here next time. Because let's be honest, this world doesn't run out of meltdowns. And as long as there's ego on trial, we'll be here, front row, popcorn ready. Oh, so you're still here? Perfect. Because if you thought Madison Carter's journey was just a one-act play, think again. This story has layers. And just when you think it's over, it grabs you by the collar, looks you dead in the eye, and whispers, "We're not done yet. Let's rewind." Not to the courtroom, but to before the courtroom, before the memes, before the media frenzy, before Madison became America's favorite cautionary tale. You want to understand how this all happened? We need to talk about the setup. See, Madison didn't become Madison overnight. This was a slow-cooked dish of entitlement, simmering in a household soaked in political power, generational wealth, and a deep, unshakable belief that consequences were for other people. When your father's been a senator since before you could walk, when you grow up attending fundraisers instead of field trips, when you've got staff, not friends, handling your mistakes, well, let's just say reality tends to get a little blurry. And it wasn't like no one saw this coming. There were signs. Oh, there were signs. The high school principal who quietly resigned after a disciplinary disagreement involving Madison and a group of cheerleaders would mysteriously erase detention records. The security footage from her college dorm showing her parking in a handicapped space, with hazard lights on, as if that made it okay. The social media post where she called her Uber driver her peasant chariot, which she deleted, of course, but not before screenshots made the rounds. It's not like she was trying to be evil. She just didn't know better, because no one ever made her learn, until Judge Caprio. Now, if you've seen his show, you know he's not in the business of theatrics. This isn't Judge Screams a Lot, or some courtroom circus for clout. Caprio operates like the last honest man in a world of spin. He listens. He considers. He weighs not just the law, but the story behind a violation. But when Madison waltzed in like she was there to film a perfume commercial, even he knew this one needed more than just a ruling. She needed a reality reboot. And that sentence, that absolutely legendary sentence, it wasn't punishment. It was surgery. A precise, methodical extraction of privilege, ego, and ignorance without anesthesia. But here's the twist most people didn't see coming. Madison didn't break. Oh, she cracked. She cried. She complained to anyone who would listen, but she didn't collapse. And somewhere, deep in that marble-covered, PR-managed core of hers, a light bulb flickered on. You could see it in the way she stopped looking for cameras during her service hours. You could hear it when she apologized without legal jargon or buzzwords, and when she started organizing support for immigrant delivery workers, writing proposals, not just throwing money. People took notice. But here's where it gets spicy. While Madison was cleaning up her life, the Carter family's political machine was slowly falling apart. See, when the scandal broke, the senator's team tried to sweep it under the rug. Damage control, rapid response, lawyered up silence. But Madison refused to play along. She didn't give them the sanitized apology statement they wanted. She didn't hide behind closed doors or plead the fifth. She walked into the courtroom. She stood up, and she owned it. And suddenly, the same machine that had protected her all her life didn't know what to do with her. Because the moment she stopped acting like one of them, entitled, unbothered, above it all, she became dangerous, uncontrollable, human. And humans, they mess up the brand. But she kept going, despite the whispers, despite the hit pieces, despite the influencer vultures trying to bait her into interviews. At one point, a very popular podcast, you know the one, tried to book her for a redemption story episode. She declined, said she wasn't a story. She was a person, learning, failing, trying again. Honestly, that's when I started rooting for her. Because let's face it, everyone loves a downfall, but a real comeback? A slow, painful, authentic one with no glam filter and no redemption hashtag? That's rare. And it wasn't just people on the internet taking notice. 6 months after her sentencing, Madison was invited, quietly without announcement, to a roundtable with local officials to discuss gig worker protections. No fanfare, no press, just her, sleeves rolled up, sitting across from city leaders, delivery drivers, and union reps. And she listened, not performatively, not with a rehearsed empathy face. She took notes. She asked questions. She learned. And later that week, one of the drivers she'd worked with, a man named Carlos, who'd been hit by a car while delivering groceries, said, "She actually gets it. She didn't just do her hours and disappear. She stayed, and she showed up for us." Read that again. She showed up for us. Madison Carter, who once used her last name as a weapon, was now using it as a shield for people who'd never had one. And when the media finally caught on to her low-key activism, she didn't grandstand. She released a one-line statement. "I'm not looking for forgiveness. I'm looking to make it right." Say what you want, but that line hits hard. Of course, not everyone bought it. Some people still think she's playing the long game, that there's a brand launch coming, a book deal, a lifestyle line, and maybe they're right. But if she's helping people along the way, if she's using the mess she made to clean up someone else's life, that matters. Because here's the truth we hate to admit. Real change is messy. It's not cute. It's not linear. It's made of late nights, awkward apologies, and showing up when no one asks you to. It's hard. It's humbling. And Madison Carter, against all odds, is doing it. Now let me ask you, what would you have done in her shoes? Not the courtroom part, the after, when the cameras stopped rolling, when the apology was already issued, when the public had moved on, but you still had to live with it. Would you hide, rebrand, fade out quietly? Or would you show up again and again until your actions started speaking louder than your mistakes? Think about it. And if you're still skeptical, good. You should be. We've seen enough fake growth to last a lifetime. But this time it might just be real. Because a Madison Carter who once believed she was untouchable is now building ramps for the people she used to look past. That's not a plot twist. That's growth. You're still with me? Good. Because we're almost at the finish line. But trust me, you don't want to miss how this story closes out. It's one thing to fall. It's another to rise. But the real test? Staying changed when no one's watching. Because after the cameras packed up, after the hashtags faded, and after the world moved on to the next Rich Kid Gone Wild saga, Madison Carter was still out there, still showing up, still trying to undo years of living like the rules were written in pencil, and she had the eraser. Let's talk about that final stretch. That chapter where most redemption arcs stall out or quietly fade into remember her? Territory, not Madison. Instead of returning to her old haunts, the private clubs, the curated vacations, the photo ops with political royalty, she did something that shocked even the people rooting for her. She stayed small. She stayed quiet. And more than anything, she stayed available. When local advocacy groups reached out asking for help organizing legal workshops for undocumented delivery drivers, she said yes and sat at the back of the room. When she was invited to speak at high schools about reckless driving and accountability, she didn't roll in with a stylist and a security detail. She carpooled with a teacher. No press, no fluff, just real talk at one school. She looked a room full of bored juniors straight in the eye and said, "I used to think I could fix everything with money or influence. Now I know the real flex is learning how to take a hit and get back up without blaming anyone else." The auditorium went silent, not because she was famous, because she was honest. And look, that's rare. We're used to watching people get caught, cry on a podcast, vanish to a wellness retreat, and then reemerge 6 months later with a can of line and a vague promise to be better. Madison didn't disappear. She didn't sell her story. She didn't start a brand. She lived it, and slowly, but undeniably, something weird happened. The public started to believe her. Not everyone, of course. There were still critics. People who said she was playing the long game, that no one changes that fast. That once privileged, always privileged. But that's the thing. She didn't try to escape her privilege. She acknowledged it, owned it, and used it to shine a light on people who never had the luxury of screwing up as badly as she did. At one event, a journalist asked if she thought she'd ever truly pay her debt to society. Her answer? No. I don't think this is something you pay off. I think it's something you carry, so it doesn't fall on someone else. I mean, come on. Who is this person? Because that girl in the courtroom, the one who mocked a judge, threatened cops, and rolled her eyes like the law was an inconvenience? She's gone. Replaced by someone who's still figuring it out, but doing it out loud. And then, just when things felt like they might finally calm down, another twist. A delivery driver, one of the same guys she worked with during her community service, was injured on the job. Broken wrist, no insurance, late on rent. And you already know what Madison did. No press release, no tweet. She showed up with rent money, groceries, and a signed form offering to cover his medical bills out of her account. When word got out, people assumed it was a stunt, but he went on record and said she didn't even want to tell anyone. I had to convince her. You don't fake that. That's not image rehab. That's not rebranding. That's a person who fell from the top and figured out how to build something better from the bottom. So where's Madison Carter now? Well, she's still not driving. By choice. She says walking reminds her to slow down, to pay attention, to stay grounded. She lives in a smaller apartment, one she pays for herself. And yes, her family still has money. Of course they do. But she's not asking them for help. Not anymore. Not for bills. Not for favors. Not for forgiveness. Because real redemption isn't about asking the world to forget who you were. It's about proving who you become every single day. And that's what Madison's doing. No shortcuts. No edits. Just work. So now it's on you. What do you think? Has she earned a second chance? Or are some people just too far gone? Would you trust her? Forgive her? Be her friend? Hit the comments and let it rip. Let's talk justice. Let's talk change. Let's talk about what we actually expect from people when they mess up on a public scale. And if stories like this, where privilege crashes headfirst into reality and gets dragged into the light, are your kind of chaos, you know what to do. Tap that like, hit that subscribe, because the next scandal, it's just around the corner. And you're going to want a front row seat when the next name goes from headlines to humility